There's Mr. Mandela, Mr. Nelson Mandela, a free man taking his first steps into a new South Africa.
I hinted to some of you the other day that I had my own personal experience of the Mandela Effect, the term used to explain false collective memories. The term takes its name from the misconception that Nelson Mandela, the former president and anti-apartheid president of South Africa, died in prison. Whilst he did indeed spend 27 years of his life in prison, he was released in 1990 and subsequently went on to live for another 23 years. There are many examples of this phenomenon. Perhaps you've experienced a few of them yourself. For example, the Monopoly man never wore a monocle. The Fruit of the Loom logo never had a cornucopia lurking in the background. And Pikachu
Pika pika.
never had black detailing on its tail. It may not surprise you to know that there are some very bizarre theories as to how these false memories are generated. Some think that there are those of us who unwittingly shift between parallel universes, yet retain memories of events that happen slightly differently. Others think that this is just proof that we are all living in a simulation, albeit one that might not be entirely stable. I personally don't believe either of these explanations. After all, the mind is a slippery construct at best and easily fooled. I for one have trouble remembering what I had for breakfast, let alone something that happened 30 years ago.
I don't believe it. It's not possible.
However, a few years ago I witnessed something that caused a momentary stab of doubt. My own personal Mandela moment, if you will.
Oh man! Oh God! Oh man!
To begin with, I need to first introduce you all to a British music television series that aired between 1970 and 1988 called The Old Grey Whistle Test. Ostensibly, it was a platform for live music performances, featuring artists and music that wasn't typically featured in the charts or considered mainstream. It was hosted by whispering Bob Harris and was a more considered, laid-back alternative to the frenetic excesses of Top of the Pops.
Hello again. Well, here we are spending our Friday night in Glasgow, bringing some of the very best Scottish music onto Whistle Test this week.
Incidentally, the name Old Grey Whistle Test was derived from a phrase coined in Tin Pan Alley, New York, whereby a newly pressed record would be played to the old greys, doormen who happened to wear grey suits. Any song that these gentlemen could remember and whistle, having only listened just once or twice, had passed the Old Grey Whistle Test. I've taken some pains to explain the provenance of the programme's name due to what follows. Going back to 3 years ago, I was trawling through YouTube when I stumbled across the Japanese funk band called the Sadistic Mika band.
Hello, that was called Time to Noodle. Next number is called Suki Suki Suki.
It was a live performance from the 7th of October 1975, and yes, you guessed it, it was featured on the Old Grey Whistle Test. I thoroughly enjoyed the performance and decided to watch it a second time. It was only then, however, that I noticed something wrong. At first, I assumed the person who had uploaded the video had merely misspelled the name, but then I experienced a moment of absolute bewilderment when I saw the same mistake on the banner displayed behind the band. My curiosity was piqued, but only enough to write the following comment. Does anyone know why grey is spelt glay in the background sign? Thought I was going mad and had misremembered the show's name. The author of the uploaded video never replied, and soon I forgot all about it. That was until a couple of weeks ago when it popped back into my head like a somewhat sinister knock at the door. What on earth was all that about? Could this have been a fragment of recorded history that had inexplicably slipped from one dimension to another? An alternate universe where grey was in fact glay? As tempting as that would have been to consider, I knew something else must be at play. Let us now look at this clip of a performance by the band Druid, who also happened to perform on the 7th of October in the same studio in Manchester. Even Whispering Bob can be seen wearing the same fetching knitted cardigan he was on the other clip. But look at the banner. It reads as it should. What madness is this? However, if you look carefully, you will notice that Druid performed to the left of the staircase and the Sadistic Mika band were positioned further to the right. So there were two separate banners. But why was this one different? Gley, a curious misspelling of grey, and who you consider a somewhat sinister association. The Japanese pronunciation, or rather the Japanese version of the English word grey, is pronounced
grey.
The Japanese R sounding somewhere between an R and an L. Therefore, this seems to be a slur on the Japanese speaker's difficulty to pronounce the English R. Would the old grey whistle test have stooped so low? It seemed very unlikely, at least to me. I decided to delve a little deeper and headed over to Reddit, that repository of knowledge pertaining to the strange and unconventional. It turned out that a number of other people had also noticed this same aberration. I won't mention the user involved. I've since tried reaching out to them for evidence of their statement and received no reply, but they were firmly of the opinion that a renegade technician had created this banner as a joke. On the surface, this seems a plausible explanation. 1970s Britain wasn't particularly adverse to doling out the odd bit of casual racism for a cheap laugh.
You see, this is very popular with my brothel.
Your brothel?
I have a big brothel in Hong Kong and a riddle sister.
However, in this case I think it very unlikely. The series was originally commissioned by none other than Sir David Attenborough and headed by the inviolable Bob Harris. One would imagine that nothing quite so puerile, nor indeed racist, would escape his scrutiny. Unsatisfied by what I had found, I decided to return to YouTube and discovered that this same clip had been uploaded by various other people over the years. Though none of the content creators mentioned the glaring spelling mistake in the banner, I thought that at least someone might have commented about it. I was on the verge of giving up when I found this comment lurking at the very bottom of one of the threads. Honestly, I think it's the band's idea. They would preemptively make fun of anti-Japanese racist attitudes. On the song prior to this one, Mika makes her entrance by pretending to be a Japanese tourist, snapping a million photographs, a common stereotype of the time. Shown in this light, the altered banner becomes a clever piece of anti-racism, poking fun at those who, in turn, poke fun of non-native speakers of English. However, I have to say that for a piece of subversion, it is somewhat subtle and would have been missed by a great proportion of the audience watching the original broadcast. Perhaps that's the extent that the producers would allow their program's name to be changed. So, in the end, has this mystery been solved? Was it the band or the work of a duplicitous technician? Or is it indeed evidence of a glitch in the Matrix? Do let me know what you think. Anyway, that's all for now. I just wanted to get that off my chest. Cheers, my loves, and see you next time. Cheerio!